So now I'd like to bring on our next guest. It's about 18 minutes past the hour, so it's about time we get over here to talk to a good friend of the station, a good friend of mine who I haven't seen in person for quite a while, and he's been on the Spring Spirit Drive before in the past. But in any event, I'm glad to welcome back Kevin McGraw to the Spring Spirit Drive.
Yeah, Deacon Jeff, Kim, good to be here and be in person. Just kind of worked out with the calendar that I was home from seminary, and we can get into what exactly that entails as we speak here. But we just happened to be home last week and the rest of this week, and so just kind of providential that the Spirit Drive happened this week, and I was here, and so I had only about a 45-minute drive north to come in person. So.
Well, it's good. It's great that you could be here today. I was excited to always be able to reconnect, with folks that I'm familiar with and know and consider to be friends, but also to kind of catch up with you and talk to priests and seminarians and those who we offer our support for, in terms of, serving our church. Mm-hmm. And so, we can hopefully get some of your perspectives as being a seminarian now in the Diocese of Toledo. Sure. And kind of how that's been going for you and kind of what's up next. Right.
Yeah. Really blessed. I think the last time we talked, I was in Texas as a Redemptorist. And at that time, was kind of going through things and just kind of reached a point where religious life wasn't ultimately the call I was discerned. I discerned that religious life wasn't ultimately what the Lord was calling me to. So left there in 2019, and in the interim period, I still had that feeling that the priesthood might be the vocation, but I was still ready to kind of turn the page and kind of see where the Lord was leading me and take some time, to kind of process everything. And so I ended up a friend of mine he's actually a transitional deacon with the Redemptorists currently. He has two other brothers who are priests of the Diocese at Arlington, Virginia, Northern Virginia. So it just so happened that one of them is a college chaplain for the University of Mary Washington that's in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And at that time, it so happened that he was hiring campus ministers to assist him in his ministry, to really be sort of his, I think the way he would put it a lot of times is we were like his lieutenants, He would sort of guide the whole thing, but myself and another campus minister would help him sort of with day-to-day operations and such. So that opportunity arose itself and came about, and with my campus ministry background, being a product of campus ministry at St. Thomas More in Bowling Green, and just how it changed my life. It just sort of a natural thing. Like as I'm going through this period of time trying to discern where's the Lord leading me, that's what I can do to not only stay involved in the church. I would have continued to practice regardless, but to actually having a lay apostolate was something I really wanted to do, and it just kind of all fell in place. So I moved to Virginia, and about a month after leaving Redemptorist formation, spent 2 years working in campus ministry there. Mm-hmm. Really enjoyed it. Really learned a lot from the chaplain that I mentioned. His name is Father Christopher Vaccaro. Very good guy, really good priest, young priest, and learned a lot from him. And through that time, continued to discern, and also kept more or less regular contact with Father Phil Smith, the vocation director for our diocese here. And just, early on to share with him that, this was kind of brought him up to speed with where things were. And we had a lot of good conversations, continued to talk every so often, and, shared with him that I was certainly wanting to be open to the possibility of priesthood and perhaps diocesan priesthood for our diocese. And, quite honestly, kind of reached a point, I don't know if I ever told him this, but it kind of got to the point where I felt like he was waiting for me to make the decision to apply. Like it wasn't a matter of whether he was welcoming it, like he was ready to. That's the sense I got, at least. So hopefully, if he's listening, hopefully he can second that. But no, about a year and a half ago, made the decision that it was time to, I really spent over the Christmas and shortly after Christmas time of that point, a year and a half ago, to really focus on my prayer and really discern, like, okay, Lord, where are you calling me here? What's the next step? I felt like I was kind of at a turning point because I had done a year and a half of campus ministry at that point, and it was sort of like, okay, I'm reaching a point in my life I'm kind of at a crossroads, and I also had, that discernment that I was, I had ongoing conversation with Father Phil, and so I kind of reached that point, and like I said, it took pretty much almost like a self mini retreat in a sense over the Christmas time period to really zero in on that in my discernment. And I remember it was the feast of St. Thomas Aquinas, January the 28th, is when I notified Father Phil that I was ready to apply, and then and about a year ago, actually, I can't remember the exact date, but in April of 21 is when I received word that Bishop Thomas had accepted me as a seminarian of the diocese, and would go on from there. And so, in recognition of my previous seminary experience, I haven't started from scratch.
Okay, that was going to be my first question. Yeah,
come in basically. I'm finishing when I go back to the seminary this weekend. We have 3 weeks left of the semester, and I'll be finishing Theology 2, which, in the grand scheme of it, is about halfway through, a little over halfway through the total process.
Okay.
Like, a guy starts, we have 2 guys that are in pre-theology for the diocese, right? So they're going to do 2 years pre-theology and then 5 years in the theology process, which includes a pastoral year. So for me, it's finishing Theology 2, pastoral year, Theology 3, diaconate at the end of Theology 3, Theology 4 is a deacon, priesthood after that. So in summary, 3 years to priesthood, 2 years to diaconate. And so this coming summer into pastoral year is what I have next. This summer, I'll be actually in downtown Toledo at Mercy St. Vincent's Hospital.
Okay.
Working with clinical pastoral education, which is a very intensive 11-week training, exposure to what it's like to be in hospital chaplaincy, learning all the ins and outs of that. So fellow seminarian Chris Turner, who's actually finishing in his pastoral year, he's up in Findlay, one of our signals at 88.7 in Findlay. So if you have any listeners out there, they probably know Chris. He's finishing his pastoral year, and the 2 of us will be doing that this summer. And then I just found out yesterday, so this is kind of breaking news, that for pastoral year, I'll be in the family of parishes in Sandusky, up along the lake there. So really looking forward to that. And that'll commence, that'll commence September 1st.
Okay.
But really looking forward to that. So that'll be a good experience. And that's kind of where we are with the process.
Kind of a long and winding road,
road, Jeff. But I always say I was doing some vocation visits the last couple of days. I was in Delphus at St. John High School on Wednesday. Yesterday I was at Lima Central Catholic, and in both places, it was basically it kind of reminded me in a sense, as I was speaking to them and going through that ultimately it's a matter of being docile to the Holy Spirit. It's a matter of we want to do what the Lord wills, but it's not always easy. And we're not always patient enough to be docile to the Lord's timing, to the direction he takes us. And, sometimes we don't really understand, why did I, do this, to get here? But I don't know that that's really important necessarily, but what is important is that we remain faithful to the Lord, and we pray for the strength to be able to carry out his will and whatever that may be. And that's what I've tried to do, and we'll continue to try to do.
Yeah, it's exactly right. When it comes, it came to my my diaconate in a sense. It was kind of something that came as a surprise to me in many ways, and it kind of, that first initial call for release hit pretty hard to the point where yes, I was sure, I'm absolutely sure, And I remember when I told Father Matt, our old pastor, I'm going to be a deacon. And he just, his reaction just floored me, because he's like, oh, okay, that sounds nice. And I realize now, looking back, oh my God, I was like a little kid, right? I didn't know what the heck I was saying,
Yeah.
because it is a process, and that process is different for everybody. And it's a time of discovery about yourself and about the Lord and about all those different things. And nothing's all the same. And I remember even my first weekend at my formation, how we sat down in small groups just to kind of talk about where we were. And I was the only one that was there thinking, I'm so sure of this. I'm so sure of this, and you guys aren't. It was really sort of weird, but it was still good that you have to go through a process. And your process and how that's kind of happened is we have to trust that that's where we're supposed to be. That we're ending up on the path that even though we may have started the long way around, it's still the place where we should be.
Yeah. Well, and you're looking for the restfulness, and not the restlessness. And I think that's ultimately what you're trying to seek, from the Lord in this life, whatever vocation that may be. And, and what was big for me is as I discerned like the possibility of coming to the diocese was for me, the term I've kind of used in my mind is full circle, my journey of faith really took flight and set off, as I mentioned, in my time in college at Bowling Green with a great campus ministry, which is still great to this day. I highly recommend that I was telling high school students the last couple of days, like if they go to BG, please go to the campus ministry. It's vitally important, especially on a secular campus.
Yeah.
And that was pivotal for me. So I think the big thing is to, stay focused on what the Lord's asking us to do. Pray for the courage and the strength to carry it out, and just ultimately what you're seeking is where am I? If I'm discerning with the Lord, if I'm staying close to the sacraments, I'm praying, I'm asking the Lord the simple question, Lord, what is your will for my life? And I do that consistently. Over time, we will, it will be revealed to us. You will find yourself gravitating toward what is most peaceful and most, in a sense, what you were wired for. And for me, when I thought about coming home to the diocese and discerning the priesthood and coming home to the Diocese of Toledo, it all just sort of made sense to me, and, at a certain point you kind of just leave it up to the church. Right. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to leave it up to our good Bishop Thomas, and who I really like, by the way, in case he might be listening, doubt it, but no, I just left it up to him. He represents the voice of the church, with those he consults. And, I just kind of, at my point, and from my perspective, I was ready to do it. And, wanted to also be docile to what it's a two-way street, as in discernment, especially when you're discerning a vocation of priesthood or diaconate or even religious life. There's, you can be all gung-ho and have zeal for it, but the church has to affirm that is your vocation as well. And
that's right.
So, but as I sit here, really content, really at peace, and really, honestly, really excited about, the next couple of years unfolding and seeing where the Lord, how I can continue to grow and see where the Lord, leads me as I go over these next couple of years. Because in a certain way, it's like, well, I still got 3 years, but it really isn't that far. Like it's, you sort of play that game in your mind. You're like, well, it's not very far away, but then again, it is. And it's like, but it's really enjoyable. That's
what I was going to ask about that. It's thinking, okay, how far away is the finish line, and how does that seem still so far away?
Right,
that's one of those things that it's kind of like when I was thinking about even my formation and thinking, it's 4 years yet, and then it's 3 years, and it's 2 years. Next thing you know, it's like right upon you. It reminds me of I can't remember where it's at in the scriptures, talking about how suddenly Jesus appeared in the temple. Yeah, and they use the word suddenly, and because they were waiting for so long, all of a sudden, suddenly he's there. And that's kind of like how it is sometimes. It's suddenly only because you were waiting for it for so long, and all of a sudden it's here. And it's hard to, and so suddenly it's happening, suddenly it's going to happen. It might be 3 years, but suddenly it's going to happen.
Sure. No, and that's, and thanks to, a good spiritual director at the seminary, and that's one of the things that he's been helpful too with that is you can look at it both ways, but, really, if you're really in the grand scheme of it, I'm closer to the end than I'm not,
Yes.
Like I've kind of reached the, even when I entered, in a sense, I was, more or less halfway through. So, really, really good. And, I just take this opportunity to pray for vocations. I know it's probably, it's, goes without saying and such, but, at the same time we need to say it. It's really important. We certainly could use more vocations for the diocese. That was a big part of why I and other guys were in different high schools across the diocese over these last couple weeks. We're just really trying to promote the just the possibility of seminary.
Right.
Like, you don't have to be set like I'm going to be a priest when you enter the seminary. You go to the seminary to discern priesthood.
Yes.
A friend of mine, Andrew Reinhardt, works for the diocese. I think he was on Annunciation Radio up north, and he was talking, and I just remember this distinctly because when I was listening, he was like, you don't discern the priesthood from your couch, right? Like, at a certain point, and this was true for me, and at a certain point, you can't truly discern further, unless you take a step, practical step, that puts you in a place where nobody becomes a deacon unless they go through the formation process. Nobody becomes a priest unless you go to the seminary and go through the process. So, in my estimation, and to be sure, not every guy is just called to priesthood. It's generally has to be a call. You don't take it for yourself. It has to be affirmed by the church and et cetera. But if you are intrigued by it, it's something to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Something to, and it may be unpopular in your friend group to sort of express like, hey, I'm thinking about this, but yeah, just trying to really inspire young men, high school age, college age, to, to really give it some consideration and to see where the Lord takes it from there, and not be ashamed. Like, if you go to the seminary for a year, 2 years, and you discern out and say, this isn't for me, God be praised. Like, that's, that means the seminary's working, the purpose is to find your vocation. And sometimes going to seminary is the way to do that.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you're listening to the Spring Spirit Drive here on Holy Family Radio. The phone number to call to make your pledge or donation right now before we run out of time on this last day, you could do that by calling 888-287-0655. That's 888-287-0655. You can also go to our website at holyfamilyradio.fm. You can donate there online securely and safely. You can also access that same page through our mobile app, pressing the donate icon at the bottom of the homepage. So get your hands on that. You can listen to us anywhere, including right now, which you can't, on 88.9 because our transmitter is having some issues. So we apologize for that. We're going to work our way through that, and we'll end up where we end up. But just want to encourage you now to make those phones ring at 888-287-0655. So, Kevin, you are a product of campus ministry, and you've worked in campus ministry, and there's a time difference between those experiences. I'm interested to know what the differences you've seen, the challenges that the young people face between what you faced, what's now, because things have really accelerated and things have really secularized very quickly.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, there's probably some things I'm not totally aware of, because some of those things are, whether it's seal of confession or what have you. But I think generally, what I was able to get a sense of particularly my 2 years, last couple, well, it's been a year ago now that I was finishing that, is just that, the thought of the culture and the thought of particularly like a secular and sort of, maybe not necessarily hostile to the Lord or hostile to the faith, but sort of not really putting the Lord in the picture, like almost, so there may be some ignorance there or what have you. But particularly, just talking with the chaplain that I worked for, there was a lot of, I don't know if I would say a lot, but there was certainly instances where like it was not an exaggeration I remember him distinctly saying this, that we would have college students. So this is the University of Mary Washington, really small, 3,000 students in Northern Virginia. We would have even daily mass goers, college students, who maybe didn't subscribe to all of the church's moral teaching, right? Mm-hmm. So you certainly have people who are dissenting and they're maybe marginally part of the faith, and we certainly want to reach out to them, and that was a big part of the ministry. But even the people who are, committed, in one way or another, maybe still be struggling with how the church understands any wide variety of issues. I think certainly the LGBT push is it's not just that campus, it's really all of the secular campuses. There's that that's there, sort of perhaps even some peer pressure there, where it's like I've got a friend who's identifying in a certain way, and like, how do I navigate that while still staying true to the faith? And so you have a lot of that. In particular, that's one that I sort of more or less observed myself. And yeah, so certainly, and I think it sort of underscores the importance of campus ministry. Even if you have, even if that's true, that you have students who are devoted that are struggling, the only way they're going to alleviate the struggling or solve the issues, so to speak, is by staying connected to that campus ministry. And it's important for us, obviously, too, for our campus ministries that we are aware of that, and we provide the formation, the evangelization as needed to both students who are actively involved and of course students who are on the margins. As far as I can tell, I can't, I think our campus ministries in the diocese are very good. We got 2 young priests that are running them, Father Jeff Walker in Bowling Green, Father Jeremy Miller at the University of Toledo. Those are the 2 big ones. I know my pastor, Father Kent Kaufman down in Lima, has recently started a kind of, it's sort of a grassroots kind of thing where he, one of the small universities down in Lima is the University of Northwestern Ohio, which has grown, over the last 10, 15 years has really, it's really exponentially grown in a number of ways. And what he's done is he's been able to connect with, I'd say probably at least 5-10 college students or young adults of college age in the area that, he started a Bible study with them using the Focus Bible Study model. And, it's sort of, eventually obviously has I don't think there's like a really thorough vision to it, but eventually wants to pass it on to be more, that they lead it themselves, but I hand it to him for, taking on another ministry. I mean, he's already pastor of a relatively big parish and, has a lot of things going on. But he was willing to, devote, he opens up his rectory for, for gatherings, meals and the Bible study. And it's, fortunately he has a pretty nice sized rectory to do that.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be working. Like I've been a part of a couple of them, over Christmas time. And then, on Palm Sunday, I believe it was the last one. And, so I think, just to kind of underscore your point, I think it's really important that, we pay attention to, what's going on, in the grade schools, high schools, universities. And, it's really important that we, address that to the extent that we can as the church, and then encourage families to really underscore that. And, in the home front. And I think, all that added together, will contribute to, what we'd like to see in terms of formation and conversion.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those campus ministries are so critically important. I think while we start losing kids, at even a younger age, many times, I think they really get pushed over the line, so to speak, in college. And I know personally of several people that were significantly impacted. We had one of them on here as a guest several years ago, significantly impacted by campus ministry. So thank you for your work in that area and your support in that area. That's great.
Sure.
You're listening to the Spring Spirit Drive here on Holy Family Radio. 888-287-0655 is the number you want to call. That's 888-287-0655 or holyfamilyradio.fm to make an online pledge, as well as the new app that we have, the Holy Family Radio app. You can make a donation there as well. Again, that phone number, 888-287-0655. One more time, slowly, 888-287-0655.
It's really hard to do, isn't it? It's really hard to say slowly.
Yeah.
It really is. And we try, but I've always said that I will never forget this number. I don't need it. I mean, you've written some notes down in here, but I'll never forget the number. At least when I do, then I know I'm in real trouble. How about that?
Yeah.
In terms of my short-term or long-term memory, right?
Yeah.
So it is 888-287-0655. That's 888-287-0655. So we had an online donation come in from a donor, a very generous gift. Want to acknowledge and thank you for that. Also, I don't think I announced this earlier. Parishioner of St. Yes, I did. Parishioner of St. John's of Glendale had a recurring donation, a new recurring donation. I want to thank you for that. And then Immaculate Conception Parish in Ottoville. So I did announce that before. So just want to make sure I cover it all.
Yeah.
Because it's important to acknowledge all the giving that's been going on and needs to continue to go on here to make this Spirit Drive a success. And we've got a long ways to go. But I'm sure we can. We've got volunteers and phone lines available for you right now. And the phone's ringing now.
Mm-hmm.
Someone's on the line, so that means there's a line there for you yet at 888-287-0655. We're talking to Kevin McGraw, seminarian for the Diocese of Toledo. And a question I might have, because we're talking about a pastoral year coming up for you, right? What does that involve? What are you going to do? Because you're not a deacon yet.
Correct.
So you're going to be doing some different things.
Yeah. I think some of that will kind of shake out over the coming months as I talk to the pastor there. At least currently, pending any priestly assignment changes. But my guess is he's probably not leaving if I'm assigned there for pastoral year. But is Father Monty Hoyles?
Okay.
He's the pastor of the parishes in Sandusky. He has two vicars. One of them is one of the priests from India that is helping our diocese, Father Jacob. I can't remember his last name offhand. And then Father Zach Brown, who's one of the newly ordained priests several years ago. I can't remember the exact year. He is the other vicar. As far as I can tell I don't know a lot. I've only been in Sandusky, a few times over the years, but really active parishes, very close together, which is, even closer than Putnam County is, if you can believe that.
Oh, yeah.
They're all, within probably a mile of each other, but very active. They have a Catholic high school there as well. I think there'll be plenty of activity. As far as what I'll be involved with, I think the idea with the pastoral year is that in a particular way, you're essentially more or less shadowing the pastor and sort of, to the extent that you can, you're sort of getting a sense of like, what is it like to, like we can have, and we have all kinds of things that we talk about on a classroom setting, and you have, relatively speaking, minimal exposure to ministry while you're in seminary, but it's an opportunity to get on the ground, so to speak, in one of our parish communities and spend a whole 9 months basically in the parish, and you're basically you're involved, and there's limits to what you can do sacramentally, of course, but
Sure.
In terms of being involved with any meetings that the pastor's involved with, you're involved in that. Chances are you'll be involved with RCIA as that begins and unfolds. Like I mentioned, they have not Catholic high school, grade school, so you'll have some involvement, perhaps a lot of involvement with the Catholic school, whether maybe it's helping teach a class or helping lead retreats for the students, whatever it may be. So I think there's quite a, kind of vast array of things that can involve, that can be involved in the pastoral year.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to it. And it really is I think an opportunity to, our guys the guys that are, you have, like I mentioned, you have pastoral work while you're in seminary and you have summer experiences, but I think it really doesn't replace, in my estimation at least, it doesn't replace going to a parish and sort of giving your time and energy full time.
You're right.
Like, there's some reflections that you do for the seminary because you get credit for it and such, but for the most part, your energy and time is spent with the life of the parish. And how am I assisting the pastor? How am I, getting involved in the life of this local church? And just trying to advance the mission that the pastor has laid out for it.
Yeah, I can imagine it would involve things like going to pastoral council meetings and kind of seeing how it is to interact with, the parish community in a decision making capacity. You won't have that, but you'll see what that give and take is like, and finance councils and all those sorts of things to see what kind of busyness there is that really is involved with administering a parish as well as quote unquote pastoring a parish. So
well, and in the situation of our diocese, you see this a lot of times. The trend has been, at least, that priests are becoming pastors a lot sooner than they were historically, right?
Yes.
Like I think of Father Scott Perry, who's here in New Cleveland and Miller City. What is he? Maybe a handful of years as a priest. I can't remember his exact year, but and he's this isn't like a knock on his like he's well qualified and that's why he is a pastor.
Yes,
but it's a reality check that hey, like you got to be ready to do that fairly quickly after ordination, and so it's not ideal, but it's a reality. And so I think this is one step in that. The pastoral year provides you that opportunity to get as much of an experience of, like you said, more the administrative side of things, so that when you are asked by the bishop to pastor a parish, then you're ready to take it on. Yeah,
I can also imagine. See, you said that comes like after a year or two. You still got a couple more years yet of schooling, so it's probably one of those. This is a bad terminology or analogy, but like the scared straight sort of thing. Going to throw you into the whole thing to see a little bit of the reality of what you're going to be facing, and it's like, okay, let's find this out now before we invest another couple of years. Because a lot of times, I don't want to say a lot of times, I say that kind of loosely, but you might think it's all about the sacraments. It's all about that sort of a thing. You don't see the other business side of it, because you're the lone decision maker as a pastor, and you've got to be able to balance that, and you got to, there's a lot of demands on a person.
And just even, being able to, merge that, I guess, in a way with, as a priest, like how do you maintain your spiritual life? How do you stay up to date with, formate, how do you self-formate, I guess you could say, or how do you, avail yourself to formation as needed, whether it's, going to conferences or talks or what have you, how do you sort of keep all of those, what we call pillars of formation, in play, even as you're living out the priestly life, in a particular way. I think, it's a challenge in seminary, and I would anticipate it being the same when you're active ministry, is keeping your prayer life, especially when you don't have the structure you can rely on. Like in the seminary, for the most part, everything's kind of laid out for you. Like this is when we're coming for morning prayer, evening prayer, but when you're on your own, you got to have that discipline. And really what these breaks that we have, really, I've taken that as an opportunity to really, that's one of my focuses while I'm on breaks, is I don't have that structure. And so I've got to create it for myself so that I'm prepared to do that when, there is no more structure to rely on. I have to, be responsible for my own, particularly my spiritual life, so that I can be, because we're going to be fruitless if we don't have a strong spiritual life that we're grounded in.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So 888-287-0655, 888-287-0655. We need the phones to ring. My cell phone's actually ringing right now. I have no idea who it is. So if you happen to be listening, I can't answer. But in any event, the number you need to be calling is not my cell phone, but the office over here. Right. And that's a toll-free number, by the way, 888-287-0655. That's 888-287-0655. Online at our website at holyfamilyradio.fm as well. That is the way you can donate and continue to help us keep going and growing here into the future at Holy Family Radio. We want to build stations in Fostoria. I won't say we want to. We will build a station over in Fostoria because we're approved to do so. We got 3 years to build it. Actually, 2.5 years about now. That will happen. And hopefully we can do so in Van Wert once the FCC says we can. But how well and how quickly we can do that depends upon the financial resources that we have. So that's where you come in. 888-287 0655 888 0655.
We'll take your donation in any form that works for you, whether it's cash, check, bank draft, credit card, Discover, American Express, MasterCard, Visa, one-time donation, recurring donation. It doesn't matter to us. We are thrilled to receive it, and we receive it with a lot of gratitude and a lot of humility, because we know that it is your treasure that you have been trusted with, and that you have to make, judicious decisions on how to handle that, how to use it, and how to give it back. So we greatly appreciate all of our faithful donors over the years, and we greatly appreciate our new donors as well. If you haven't donated yet, we really request that you prayerfully consider doing so. Your best gift, whatever that is what matters to us. That is what helps us. It doesn't matter if it's $5 or $5,000. If it's your best gift, we know that's what we're supposed to have.
Right.
And it counts, and it all adds up, and it all matters. So give us a call at 888-287-0655.
Right. I've got some donations and some news to be able to share with our listening audience here. We got a donation from a $100 donation from Holy Family Parish here locally. I want to thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And also, another parishioner of Holy Family over here in New Cleveland is offering a matching fund. All right. And it's at apostle level. It's $1,000.
Great.
So we have $1,000 matching fund on the table right now. I know some people wait for that particular, something like this to come along so that their donations are doubled. Mm-hmm. So yes, indeed, right now it can be doubled up to $1,000. So
that's great.
We need to have you call now and take advantage of that. 888-287-0655. That's 888-287-0655. We need to try and fill that as soon as we can in case there are others that will be offered. We just never know when we'll have that available. So we want to cover that so we can offer some more later on today, and it will get busy. 888-287-0655.
So that's a donor who's saying, hey, I'll give up to $1,000 in matching funds. So listeners, if you donate $50 and a friend of yours or anybody calling in during the time period that's available, essentially gets their own dollars doubled by this person offering this challenge out there and this opportunity to match your funds, they will match.
Right.
And of course, that's obviously a great benefit to the station. But it also sort of benefits you in the sense that you can know your dollars are stretching even further.
That's right.
So it's a great time to call. As Deacon Jeff said, a lot of people wait until those matching funds are available. So they are available now. Pick up that phone. Give us a call, 888-287-0655. holyfamilyradio.fm. Just put a little note on there, get it in there, and you can put a little note that you want to participate in that matching challenge. And, of course, always on our new app as well, the Holy Family Radio app.
That's right. Online donations count. So if you make an online donation now, if there's matching funds available, those will be added to that. Okay. So it's not just a phone call in here. You can also do it online, and it counts. Okay. It counts. So want to make sure you know about that. holyfamilyradio.fm.
So I have a question.
Okay.
So people, like we've talked about saints, people in the past, we've talked about people think that they're so holy and so, perfect in every way. And I wonder if you can tell us what they encourage you to do for fun when you're in the seminary. Do they have events for you? People don't think of men in formation for the priesthood or diaconate that they're human,
Right.
So I wonder if you're able to share any of that.
Sure. We lead very boring lives. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, there's actually quite a lot. We have a seminarian that his house job is to foster athletics for the community. So, and he's very good about it. So, almost every day, every weekday, there's an email coming out. We will have soccer at this time. We will have basketball at this time. And obviously the times are, common times that most guys would have available. So there's that. We have what we call Bar Jonah, kind of, what would you say, like a play on words with, in the scriptures, Peter is referred to as Simon, son of John, or Bar Jonah is the, what is that, the Hebrew or the Greek or whatever it is. But anyway, so that's our sort of common. So it's a area of the seminary that is basically our a gathering space for us to have all different kinds of things. So it's a bar, so we have that available, but we also have several TVs. So a lot of times guys will gather in there to watch sports games. You know, believe it or not, we still follow sports even though we're in seminary, and so we have that. There's some video game systems that are down there. We have a pool table, and so, but there's also different things. Every Wednesday, we have we would call Wednesday community evening or community night. So we have a mass in the evening, we have a formal dinner thereafter, and then after that, there's some kind of common activity that's more or less obligatory. You know, there's a few exceptions to that, but that can consist of a number of things. It could be anything from, you know, if there's a lecture that we have a lecture once a semester, so it could consist of that. It could be coming together to watch a movie. It could be coming together we had like, you know, speaking of athletics, we had like an Olympic competition. Like we had these different things, and we divided it up by year in seminary. So like those were the teams, you know, so yeah, different things like that. And of course there's informal things that are available to do. So I haven't done this yet, but you know, you know, right at the beginning of the year, when I first moved down to Cincinnati, we went to a Reds game as a seminary community. You know, we got a blanket of seats, I guess you could say, and so we have those opportunities, and yeah, so there's quite a few different things that are available, and you know, and on the weekends in particular, you know, there's a degree of free time, you know, where you know guys will take advantage of that to, you know, to go, you know, to get out of the seminary, because I think that's healthy too, to get out of the walls of the seminary, because sometimes you know you need that sort of change of scenery to refresh and stuff. So it's, you know, and part of, you know, for a young man who's, you know, who might be wondering about that, the easiest way to discover it is to come on a visit to the seminary. You know, whether it's I know the seminary does. I can't think of the dates offhand or when they typically occur, but usually once in the spring and maybe once in the fall, there's a opportunity to come for a visit to the seminary, and also, you know, for our own diocese, I know this summer we did it last summer, and I anticipate we'll do it this summer as well. You know, when we're available as seminarians, we try to have events, you know, that we are present for, and kind of give, you know, prospective seminarians, or at least guys that are open to the possibility, sort of a sense like, hey, we're kind of regular guys. Like, you know, we have interests of different kinds that are similar to just the next guy. So, so I'm glad you asked that question, because a lot of times there is sort of this picture that, like, you know, we're kind of irregular or something, but no, I mean, that's probably one of the most, you know, interesting parts about it is, you know, you really get a lot of interesting guys that are part of the seminary, but you know, but they're all good guys, you know, and in fact, that's one of the things I've really appreciated just in my 1 year of diocesan seminary is the camaraderie, the brotherhood that you develop with the guys, you know, not only my fellow seminarians of the diocese, but, you know, down in this is Mount St. Mary's Seminary in Cincinnati for the listeners, over 80 seminarians that are on the campus, most of them from the Archdiocese of Cincinnati. The second largest contingent is from the Diocese of Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
They send their guys up there for them. And we're basically in third place with 10 seminarians that are affiliated with the seminary down there. But just, the camaraderie that you develop with the guys, you know, and really, you know, please God, will be lifelong friendships, you know, especially as fellow priests, and, you know, being able to call each other up and exchange ideas, and, you know, so, yeah.